Good morning. Wow, I haven't used this podium mic for a long time. I think I got taller. This morning, our guest speaker is our old friend Patricia Childs. She'll be leading our service today called the UU Aesthetic. Patricia moved to Augusta in 2012 after living overseas for 12 years, where she taught at the DODS school. What is that? Department of Defense District Schools. My old job. As well as teaching violin and serving as the bass musician. In her time, she's been a teacher of English, knitting, and wire jewelry. She currently teaches voice and piano lessons at her music studio called Make Some Noise, and is in the process of earning her master's in English at Tiffin University. Patricia Childs has been a local performer in the Augusta area for 6 years. She's been a soloist many times with the Augusta Choral Society. And before the COVID came, she held yearly jazz benefit concerts, some of them were here, with the proceeds going to local charities and the Augusta University Jazz Studies program. She is married to Nixon Child and has 2 kids, B and Max, and 3 slightly neurotic but beautiful tabby cats, Allison, Cindy, and Lady Jane. Our opening hymn this morning is Wake Now My Senses, number 298 in your hymnal. Stand and by your spirit is great. For our announcements this morning will be our board member, Alan George.
Good morning. Good morning. First, I'd like to welcome any visitors that may be with us this morning. And if you're here for the first time, I invite you to stand and say your name so we can help welcome you. Do you have any visitors today?
Christopher Glendale.
Thank you. Welcome.
Kristen Wagner.
Welcome, Kristen. Thank you.
Jen Van visited from the Aiken Church. Glad to be able to be here.
Glad to have you. Okay, our announcements for the week. First of all, the UUCA meditation group gathers weekly online at the church every Monday from 7 to 8:30. And it's a hybrid event. So if you're going to be online, you want to contact E. McNabb or Melanie Roberts. And if you're going to be here in person, Chris Garcia is your person. The Portable Book Club meets monthly, and they meet online to discuss a selected book. And this month it meets on Thursday, July 22nd at 7 p.m. And you want to contact Liz Goodson, who will help you get connected. If you're a committee chair, you'll meet next Sunday, July 25th at 9:30 for the quarterly committee council meeting here at the church. We'll be in the common room, and please have your plans for the next quarter ready to share with the other committee chairs. Contact President-elect Marshall Wurst for more information. The Social Justice Committee will meet on the fourth Sunday of the month. This will be next Sunday, July 25th, from 1 to 2:30 p.m. at the church. And finally, the fourth Sunday Vespers will be a hybrid event in the sanctuary with COVID precautions, and will also be on Zoom. This month, it will be held on Sunday, July 25th, from 7 to 8 p.m. Contact Jezebel and Nat for more information, and check the announcements in the public calendar for more details about other events later in the month. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Our chalice words this morning are from Amy Morgenstern. Within the heart of the flower, the fountain of beauty, within the heart of community, a fire that warms and dances, within the heart of each of us, a spark of the spirit of life. Holy, holy, holy. There's a way, I'll find it. So this morning, our joys and sorrows will be led by a member of our pastoral care team, Margaret Tuck. If you have a joy or sorrow that you would like to share with the congregation, feel free to come forward and stand right here in front of the camera between the table and the podium. For all of those who cannot be with us today, who wish that they could be. This morning's meditation.
The words of the meditation today come from The Martian by Andy Weir. At some point, everything's going to go south on you, and you're going to have to say, this is it. This is how I end. Now, you can either accept that, or you can get to work. That's it. That's all there is. You just begin. You do the math. You solve one problem. And then you solve the next one, and then the next. And if you solve enough problems, you get to come home.
So for this morning's meditation, I'll mind your time for 1 minute of silence. Please take a minute to take a deep breath. Find a sense of presence. Sometimes it helps to take a look around the room and see all the other people who are here with you. And try to get a sense of their presence with you also. All right. This morning, when Patricia's family was coming in, I saw her girl B for the first time in over a year. There she is. Boy, she is so different from the way last time I saw her. Only a year different, and she's becoming a young lady or something already. Amazing. Here's a parable Jesus told, which has actually always been my favorite of his parables, called the parable of the mustard seed. It's one of these parables of his that nobody can make any sense out of at all. It's not even a very good story, but it makes a lot of sense to me. And I was thinking of it when I saw her. Parable of the mustard seed, Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. He said, a man took this, the smallest of seeds, and planted it in his field, and he cared for it. And it became the largest of herb trees, and the birds planted their nests in its branches. End of parable. As a transcendentalist mystic, I think of that as meaning that the spiritual path takes time. You know, even if you want to change yourself, it takes a long time, and you just have to be very persistent. But I always think of that last part of the parable where he says it became the largest of herb trees, and the birds made their nests in its branches. That's what he's talking about. Your spiritual life is not just for yourself. It's so that you can become someday the kind of person that the birds can come and raise their babies in your branches. And that's what this church should be for all of us. This is where your spiritual path and your practice runs through, whether you think of it that way or not. And when it's working right, the birds come and nest and raise their babies in your branches. And that is a sign of spiritual health. We need to take care of that. And now's your chance to do that. If there are any ushers, will they please come forth?
generosity. We thank you.
I'd like to open my sermon with a short quote from one of my very favorite movies, the 1984 movie Starman. It's about an alien who comes to Earth to learn everything he can about us in just a few days before he has to go back to his home planet. You are a strange species, not like any other, and you'd be surprised how many there are. Intelligent, but savage. Shall I tell you what I find beautiful about you? You are at your very best when things are worst. So it's been a while since I've been in this, up here in this pulpit, and it's no less intimidating than it was the first time. There's all kinds of pieces of paper up here. There's arrows and stickies and books and lots of notes with instructions written on them, like eggs, cream cheese, light bulbs, athlete's foot powder. Oh, Chris, you left your grocery list up here. So my sermon title today is What We Find Beautiful and Why It Matters. The idea of this topic came to me as a result of my online classes. About this time last year, I decided I was going to do something that I had always talked about doing but lacked the nerve to try. I was going to go to grad school and get my master's in English. It needed to be an online program where I would have assignment dates, due dates, but no restraints on how or when I studied, because with the COVID lockdowns, with the kids in and out of learn from home, and everything else going absolutely haywire in the world, I knew I would be working on things in fragments as opposed to traditional structured education. So after a month of searching and sending away for information and phone calls, I found a program that I liked in Tiffin University, Tiffin, Ohio. And I was one step closer to being my goal of being a college English professor. Now, it's funny, the other day I was at the post office mailing off my tuition check, and the lady behind the little partition said, "Oh, Tiffin, Ohio, where they have the toilets." I said, the toilets? She said, "Yeah, there's a big ceramics factory out in Tiffin, and they make a lot of the ceramics for the toilets." And I said, "Well, what an interesting piece of information to acquire in a post office. I'm not getting a toilet, I'm getting a degree." So I enrolled in Tiffin University as a master's in humanities student. I predicted that I'd be reading a great deal of literature, and I did. I still do. Here is one of 2 textbooks for one of 2 classes. This thing is a paving slab. There's a lot in here. There is a lot in here. And we go through the class so fast that I feel like I don't absorb everything I'm supposed to, but that's kind of the nature of these classes. It didn't really bother me. I kind of love it because each assignment is wonderful. I am so very fond of the English language, and I always have been. The English language can do so many wonderful things. I love what it can say and how it's a mixture of so many other things. And I love how it's still evolving. My first semester whizzed by, had a great time. And then I got to my second semester, and I saw that I was enrolled in British literature and a class called aesthetics. I had no idea what aesthetics was, not a clue. And it took me about 9 weeks to figure out some kind of loose working definition that made sense to me. So aesthetics is one of those words that you feel like you understand in a very general way. And I've no doubt that there are people out there right now saying, "Well, I know what aesthetics means. What is this silly cow on about?" Fair enough. Aesthetics is one of those terms that a lot of people know through usage more than definition. Like, I decorated everything in my house according to my personal aesthetic, pink leopard skin. Or that new block of apartments downtown is not in fitting with the aesthetics of the area. It's one of those terms that's sort of out there, and we think we know, but we would not like to be pressured to define too specifically. And basically, that we do know that it has something to do with beauty. What aesthetics actually deals with is the nature of beauty and taste. And it comes from the Greek word, which I won't even try to pronounce, meaning I perceive or I sense. It is also the philosophy of art. What happens in our minds when we engage in any kind of art, either as the receiver or the creator, and it applies to anything we deem as artistic: musics, paintings, sculpture, the written word, dance, anything in nature. You can also use it to describe the certain attributes of a certain era, like the aesthetics of Renaissance painting and architecture. Moreover, it's a term that not only refers to the work of art and what occurred in the creator's mind when they were producing it, it also refers to how we perceive it in our own minds and how it affects us on a sensory, emotional level. There's a lot of meaning packed into that one word. It is a powerful word. In short, our senses say, well, that painting or that sonata or that blue heron in flight across the sunset is beautiful. And aesthetic steps in and says, but why is it good or beautiful? Why are you calling this an aesthetic experience or art? What makes it so? It's not really looking to categorize or defend why something is beautiful necessarily, because there are plenty of people who have plenty to say on that topic already. It's just asking why it moved you. And sometimes it works better in the reverse. Why didn't you find it beautiful? What's lacking? Why didn't it move you? So that one word has a lot of human involvement. And that's why I like my language so much, because English is full of words like that, just juicy, you can sink your teeth into and really ponder over for days. Because when we look up and see the stars, some see burning balls of gas, others look up and see the eternal, and some of us see both. So at this point, I'd like to pause and ask you to think about 3 to 5 things that you find beautiful. It can be anything. It could be a work of art, an act of kindness, a symphony, the smell of a newborn baby. Anything that takes you from where you are right now and transports you into a world of beauty, even if it's just for a moment. Hang on to those images. I'm going to be asking you about them shortly. So, back to the question at hand. What is beautiful? Can you define it? And if you can, how? What is your method or your criteria or even a mental or emotional checklist of beauty? It's tricky, isn't it? You don't want to leave anything out. You don't want to sound like a smarty pants. You don't want to miss anything. But sometimes you wonder, well, why does it even matter? It's beautiful because it's beautiful. And really, by asking such a simple question, you step into an aesthetic debate that is quite honestly thousands of years old, as is demonstrated by this. So standard answer number 1 to what is beauty. Most people say, well, it's really subjective. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, which is subjective, meaning that we are looking at beauty's effect on the subject. That's you. What you experience when viewing something, your own pleasure or elation or feelings of calm or any sort of sensory emotional reaction. The 18th century Scottish philosopher David Hume saw beauty as largely subjective, among other things. He suggested that beauty did not lie in things so much as it lies in the mind of the person seeing the work, and what one regards as beautiful may not be seen as beautiful by another person. Here's an example. Almost everyone knows the famous Mona Lisa painting, yes? It's easily identifiable. Now, I've been fortunate enough to see it twice live in my life. It is a lot smaller than expected. It's about 30 inches by 21 inches. And when I first saw it, I looked at it as close as I could. They've got a bulletproof screen over it. And I thought, huh, that was my reaction. Huh. I honestly felt like I was missing something. I know I'm not alone in this. It was not beautiful to me. I had no emotional reaction to the painting, and I really thought I was missing out. And when my son Max saw it, because he was with me at the time, his reaction was the same. huh. And I thought, well, maybe I just need to read a little more about it, but not too much. It's still a great work of art, but the most important part of this experience for me was just standing in the Louvre with my son. The experience of seeing it was beautiful. My son and I took a trip to Paris right before we moved out of Germany, and that's where we went to see it. That was my beauty, the experience shared. And so our pal David Hume touches on this too when he suggests that beauty is relational. So it goes beyond the subjective. And by exposing ourselves, excuse me, to great works of art over and over again, good taste emerges. We learn to appreciate these works by learning about them. We learn by doing. Because the problem is that beauty may become meaningless if it's just a matter of taste or personal preference. Someone can always find a reason to call something beautiful. It loses its value as an ideal, and the word is emptied of meaning. And Immanuel Kant, who lived about the same time as Hume, agreed, saying that the judgment of beauty is based on feelings, particularly the feeling of pleasure. There's no logic, really. There's no cognitive process that we're aware of. Something is beautiful because it moves you. But beauty is also objective. In this sense, the definition of beautiful refers to an object. As the Imagist poet Wallace Stevens said, no idea is about the thing but the thing itself. Here's a famous example of the thing itself by Imagist poet William Carlos Williams. It's a very famous poem called The Red Wheelbarrow. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. That's it. But you just saw in your head that picture, didn't you? Very powerful. So in his 1938 work, The Principles of Art, the philosopher, archaeologist, and idealist Robin George Collingwood put forth that the creation of art is not to affect an emotional response at all, but simply to create the perfect vision the artist holds in his head, like the red wheelbarrow. So here's a nifty little quote that I like very much from physicist David Deutsch, considered to be the founding father of quantum computing, and it's from his book, The Beginning of Infinity. Our knowledge of the nature of objective beauty is still very primitive. We cannot reliably distinguish between subjective and objective beauty, certainly not just by looking. Things that meet aesthetic preferences built into our brains or instilled by culture look just as beautiful to us as those that are objectively beautiful. A little something to chew on there. Now, okay, think back to those 3 to 5 things that I asked you to pull forth a few minutes ago. The things that you find beautiful, and see if you can see them that way now because of the effect they have on you emotionally. That's subjective. Or maybe they are objectively beautiful because they are balanced or linear, or perhaps you can see the work that went into them, like my experience with the Mona Lisa. And it's okay if you find that some of those things fall into both camps, because that's why the debate goes on. So, why does this matter to us? Why should we go down this particular aesthetic wormhole over and over again, seeking something that eludes definition at every turn and seems to spawn more questions than answers that we all wonder about and wonder if everyone else is wondering about as we travel from day to day and year to year on our life's path? Because those same exact questions on the nature of things, human existence, spirituality, connection with each other, compassion, life, the universe, and everything, those same questions are what brought each of us to those doors right behind us. And it's so well said in our 4th principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Hey, she got there at last. It's coffee time. Wait, there's more. So my final project for aesthetics, the aesthetics class that I mentioned, was in 2 parts. The first was to put together a presentation of buildings or structures that I found to be aesthetically pleasing, and to write a personal summary of my definition of aesthetics. And here is where my UUism really kicked into overdrive. In fact, I became the resident UU sage on my discussion board. That is a very awkward position to be in. So what I found to be beautiful for me wasn't necessarily the product, but it was the process. the course, the journey that the creators of something took to make what they did. Going back to my example of the Mona Lisa, I don't see an enigmatically smiling woman. I don't see the techniques that Leonardo used to paint this picture, like the sfumato, which is the technique of letting the colors in the background fade one into the other. That was new stuff back then. I don't consider the light source of the subject. I don't consider the folds of her garments, all the things that people like to talk about. I probably never have, and I probably never will. What I do see in my mind is Leonardo mixing paints on hundreds of palettes. I see him opening his creaky window to get more light. I see him sketching his vision on a piece of parchment and dipping his brush into paints and very carefully applying it to the wood panel, because Mona Lisa's on a slab of wood. She's not on a canvas. I see him agonizing over that little glint in her eye. Too much white, maybe? A hair out of place? Fingers not pink enough? In short, I see the process. I see Leonardo laboring away at this painting, the idea that occupied one tiny corner of his immensely active mind. He's stroking his beard and thinking, that's not what I want to do. I gotta start over. That is not what I see in my mind. Keep in mind, it took Da Vinci 16 years to paint the Mona Lisa. 16 years! This painting is a journey. The search for the aesthetic within each of us is a journey. And as you use, we are hardwired not to give up on this search, this itchiness we have within ourselves to find our own answers. It's why we're here. Folks, the journey is beautiful. The journey is our aesthetic. And we are so fond of the journey that we named one of our songbooks after it. Singing the Journey. We are so fond of the journey that one of this church's favorite hymns is entirely dedicated to the process. Never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep. Drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. It's a lot of traveling words in that section I just read. The ocean I travel, plying the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder as you go by. This is about movement toward. Pilgrim souls. That's why we're here. We are pilgrim souls. And our journey is our aesthetic. Just like the appreciation of beauty, our pilgrimage through the distinctive life that we carve out for ourselves is one of movement and process. And over the last 15 months, that journey, buoyed up so perfectly by our time here together, has stagnated because of the pandemic. Instead of seeing our fellow humans as fellow travelers, we have to see everyone else on the planet as a threat, as a carrier of a deadly virus that doesn't care who you are, it doesn't care where you came from, and it doesn't care what you've accomplished. COVID put spaces between us, and within ourselves there is a terrible feeling of solitude and fear and apprehension. And we are just not meant for that. Ours is not a caravan of despair, not in the long term. Remember that the opposite of beauty is not ugly. The opposite of beauty, no matter what the thesaurus tells you, is doubt. Subtle, perfidious doubt that creeps in with long, skinny fingers, slowly insinuates itself into your mind and heart and our sense of the divine, of the holy. Whispering, we don't have time for things of beauty right now because it is all about survival, and that is what matters right now. And it's true. We live in frightening times. We really do. It is true that there needs to be space between ourselves, because even now with vaccines and social distancing and masks, we are not safe, not completely. But the journey can't stop. We're doing it right now, and we can remember the beauty of the yet to be seen and the divine. We may not be able to sit side by side right now like we used to, but we are closer today than we have ever have been before. We can look at each other in person today and remember that that journey continues. The questions continue, and the answers, they're byproducts of the journey. The 18th century poet Joseph Addison said, "There is nothing that makes its way more directly to the soul than beauty." And by remembering what we find beautiful, we might remember what connects us. And it is not the fear of a virus that is no respecter of people. We're not just survivors, we are capable of immense beauty, even now, because we are still journeying. Even if it's through darker waters, even if it's more of an inner journey, we are still moving and we are still tethered together. In closing, I'd like to borrow the words of the Unitarian Reverend Heather Ryan Starr. May whatever gatherings or activities we engage in this Sunday afternoon help restore us, our connections to one another, our sense of hope and beauty and fun in this world, our deep knowing that we have to take care of ourselves and of each other with love and joy if we are to survive soulfully the world's mayhem. Amen. Shanti, Selah. Blessed be, and thank you for the honor of your listening. And may you discover something beautiful today.
Thank you, Patricia. Our closing hymn is "We Lift Our Heart in Thanks," number 355 in your hymnal. Please stand and embody your spirit as you are able.
The final reading for today is from Alice Dunbar Nelson, and it is called Sonnet. I had no thought of violets of late, the wild, shy kind that spring beneath your feet in wistful April days when lovers mate and wander through the fields in rapture sweet. The thought of violets meant florist shops, bows and pins and perfume papers fine and garish lights, and cabaret songs and deadening wine. So far from sweet real things my thought had strayed. I had forgot wide fields and clear brown streams, the perfect loveliness that God has made. Wild violets, shy and heaven-mounting dreams. And now, unwittingly, you've made me dream of violets and of my soul's forgotten gleam. My closing words today come from the Swiss philosopher Henri Frédéric Amiel. Life is short. We don't have much time to gladden the hearts of those who walk this way with us. So be swift to love and make haste to be kind. Until we meet again.
Thank you.